If the last century belonged to the companies that pulled oil out of the ground, this one may belong to the companies that store energy in a different way inside a battery. And the largest of those companies, by a wide margin, is one that most people outside its industry have never heard of. That did not exist 20 years ago, and that now makes roughly a third of all the electric vehicle batteries on Earth. It is a Chinese company with an unmemorable name, Ecatel. And if the world really is going to run on batteries, then it is quietly building an astonishing amount of the future. This is a series about the companies that run the world and the rivals they left behind. Today it is cattle, and its rise is one of the fastest and most complete conquests of a critical industry in modern history. 2 decades ago, the world of advanced batteries was led by Japan and South Korea. Today, when a car maker almost anywhere, from Germany to America, wants the batteries to power its electric cars, there is an excellent chance they end up buying them from this one firm in China. To see why that matters, you have to see the battery for what it now is. For an electric car, the battery is not a component. It is the single most important, most expensive, and most difficult part of the entire vehicle. It largely determines the car's range, its cost, its safety, and how long it lasts. A car maker can design a beautiful vehicle, but if it cannot get its hands on enough good, affordable batteries, it simply cannot build cars at scale. The battery is the new engine, and CA Cattle, more than anyone, makes the engines. CA Cattle was founded in 2011, which makes its dominance almost absurdly recent. It rode and helped drive the enormous wave of electric vehicles that China deliberately chose to build its industrial future around. As China became the largest electric car market on the planet, the company at the center of supplying those batteries grew at a speed that has few parallels. It did not slowly climb to the top over generations. It arrived at the summit in little more than a decade. And its advantages compounded. It reached a colossal scale which drove its costs down. It poured money into research, improving the chemistry inside the cell. And crucially, it sat at the heart of the world's most complete battery supply chain, because China had spent years quietly coming to dominate not just the making of batteries, but the refining of the specialized minerals that go inside them. CA Cattle did not just build batteries. It sat at the center of an entire ecosystem built to feed them. So who competes with a giant like this? Here, unlike some stories on this list, the rivalry is genuinely fierce and the competitors are formidable. And the most fascinating of them is another Chinese company, one you may actually have heard of because it also builds the cars. That company is BYD, and it is unusual in that it makes both the batteries and the electric vehicles they go into. This vertical integration makes BYD a uniquely dangerous rival, and it has been closing the gap, making the top of this industry an intense two-horse Chinese race. Beyond the domestic duel, the old masters are still very much in the fight. South Korea's LG Energy Solution is a genuine global heavyweight. Japan's Panasonic, long the key battery partner to Tesla, remains a serious force. Other Korean firms like Samsung and SK are major players too. This is not a monopoly. It is a brutally competitive global industry. But the striking fact remains that the two companies at the very front of it, Cattle and BYD, are both Chinese, which points to something much larger than any single firm. Because the deeper story here is not really about one company. It is about the fact that the technology to store energy, which the entire clean energy transition utterly depends upon, has become concentrated to a remarkable degree in one country. It is not only the electric car. The very same batteries, at enormous scale, are increasingly used to store energy for the electricity grid itself, soaking up power from solar panels by day to release it at night. The battery is becoming a load-bearing pillar of the whole future energy system, and Cattle is its single largest maker. But no lead-in technology is ever perfectly safe, and the ground under the battery industry is genuinely shifting. The chemistry itself keeps changing, and each shift is a chance for the order to be upended. There is a race toward new designs, like batteries based on sodium instead of scarcer lithium, and toward so-called solid-state batteries, long promised as the next great leap. Whoever masters the next chemistry first could reset the entire competition. Cattle knows this, and spends enormous sums trying to make sure that the company that disrupts batteries is, once again, itself. So, the uncomfortable question this series keeps returning to has, by now, a familiar and worrying shape. So much of the world's ability to store clean energy, the very foundation of any future beyond fossil fuels, now flows through the factories and supply chains of a small number of companies, concentrated overwhelmingly in one nation. Western governments have noticed, belatedly, and are now spending vast sums trying to build their own battery industries, a race they are starting years, and sometimes a decade, behind. Now, to be fair, CAT earned its position the hard way. It outbuilt, outscaled, and often out-engineered its rivals at a moment when much of the West was simply not paying enough attention to how strategically vital these unglamorous chemical cells would become. There is no trickery in making a better, cheaper battery than anyone else, year after year. If the rest of the world was caught flat-footed, that is, at least in part, a failure of foresight, not the result of anyone cheating. And that is the deeper lesson, in one of its most forward-looking forms. The choke points of the future are being quietly cast right now, in the present, by companies deciding to master the boring, difficult, capital-hungry technologies that the coming age will depend on. While much of the world argued about electric cars, one company went and built the thing inside them, at a scale nobody else could match. If the future really does run on stored electricity, then a phone that barely existed 20 years ago has already quietly made itself very hard to do without.